out beyond ideas of wrongdoing and right doing. There is a field. I'll meet you there. When the soul lies down in that grass, the world is too full to talk about ideas, language, even the phrase each other doesn't make sense. Hi everyone. Douglas is a legend in the recovery community in our area. He has been clean and sober for more than 30 years already and is still going strong. I'm very happy to be able to speak to him. I got to know him when I relocated from Cape Town to Somerset West about, 5 years ago. He is a constant presence in our recovery lives and an excellent example to have in our midst. I have obviously heard him share many times, but I've never heard his full story. I'm quite excited to hear about his full spiritual path. This podcast is supported by the first layer, the 12-step workbook on working through the 12 steps in any addiction in 21 sessions. There is also a 24-day step coaching and counseling program available based on the first layer. For more information in this regard, go to www.freddy.org.za and click through from the notices at the right of the homepage. Let's get to it then. Sit back and enjoy. Douglas, welcome to Meet Me in the Field on this cold and rainy Cape Town day.
But isn't it wonderful? The rain... There was 87 millimeters on Tivada's Cliff.
Are you serious?
Yesterday, somebody called in onto Cape Talk Radio.
That's excellent news.
Yeah. And 87, that's a lot, and that's where we need it.
That's excellent. Yeah. Because I'm a bit of a Twitter fanatic, and Helen Ziller tweeted a picture of the rain patterns, and I said to Jaco still, look, it's exactly on the catchment areas. Yeah. So it was exactly correct.
Yeah.
That is excellent.
Yeah. I'm expecting rivers to be flooding into the dam at
lovely
a rate.
Well, grateful for every drop that falls. So when you arrived, I said to you, it feels like a London day.
Yeah.
And I was shocked the other night when I discovered that you're actually South African.
I am.
It never crossed my mind that you might be South African.
Born in Fishhook, in a maternity home that no longer exists.
Are you serious?
I'm serious.
So how did you end up in London?
Well, I'm a dual citizen by virtue of my grandparents, and when South Africa became a republic and then resigned from the Commonwealth, there was at that stage, if you were under 21, you could be registered as a British citizen, and my father did, my brother and I, and then later on my youngest brother, who's 6 years younger, he went and did it his own.
Okay.
It's a hell of a palaver.
I can imagine, yeah.
You know, all the documentation takes forever. Anyway, once you got it all together, then once it's done, it's done.
Yeah.
So he didn't do the girls.
Are you serious?
No, they would get husbands who would look after them.
Oh my God.
Well, I don't know if that's what he actually said. I don't remember that. But my oldest sister, she married a Hollander, and they eventually ended up in Holland, which is why I've got Dutch nephews. And she said that he had said that
the husbands would
look after them. So so I mean, the very first time I went to England in 1970, I applied for a passport.
Okay.
And it was a different kind of citizenship. And you know, towards the end of apartheid, and I thought there was going to be a revolution, and
like all of us
to do with it. And I was really peaking in my addictive process and busy losing all my money that I'd made by working addictively. And all that, and made a lot of money, but I didn't actually spend it, I just lost it by not applying my normal standards to my own affairs or whatever if I were advising somebody.
The hairdresser's hair always looks the worst.
Something like that.
Sorry, any hairdressers listening to, not me personally.
So anyway, it was peaking, and I'd lost my job, and I had to be bought out for the shares. So I had enough money at that stage, but I put it into something, and that just lost money.
Oh no!
I had a partner who was stealing, I worked as part of my accounting practice that I was trying to get going. I went and did the monthly accounts for an import-export company, which was managed by an ex-colleague of mine who now lives in Hout Bay. But it was belonged to an American. Him and his husband and wife team that based in London, and did a lot of stuff in the UK. They used to export our stuff. And anyway, they'd split up. So he was running American office and she was running the UK office. And Ivan was running the South African buying office. And I used to do the books. And one day, I went in there, and there was Murray. I've known him for a good few years. He's also an alcoholic. Well, he was. He's dead now. But also was an alcoholic. But he was a secret drinker. He was the sort of person that you went out. He always drank exactly what you drank. I ended up living in his house with him in Florida.
Okay.
I never ever saw him drinking, other than when we went out socially.
Yeah.
That when he was sober, he was mean as cat shit. But when he was drunk, he was charming and effusive and generous. Frequently didn't remember. I should have known that from having grown up with an alcoholic father. You know, you had to.
So you're an adult child as well?
I am, and that's how it started, because his
Okay.
girlfriend was moaning a bit about this, and she was going to these 12-step fellowships called Adult Children of Alcoholics.
Yeah.
So I said, oh, I know about that. So her car blew up. She was talking to him, and he would rent her a car, he would do all of these, but he was 3 sheets in the wind. And when she phoned him up, or went to see him in the office, I could see that he didn't remember.
Oh, my word.
But he was very good, so you know he followed it through.
Yeah.
And he did what he promised, but he had to be reminded what it was. Anyway, so that's how I found the fellowship, because by that time I was a binge drinker, but drugs were, you know, you just did them,
Yeah.
whatever was around. I smoked a lot of dope, but so we used to get Malawi cob, which was about the strongest you'd get, and then we'd get Rooibos from Swaziland,
Okay.
Rooibos. I had a friend, I never thought of him as a dealer. And we'd go to Swaziland. In fact, he smuggled some, but we went to Swaziland for a weekend once, and I didn't realise until we got home that he actually smuggled dope in my car.
Oh, my
And
God.
went through customs and everything. They didn't care, but I mean, they didn't know it was there. But he
Yeah.
hid it away. I didn't know it was there. Loved amphetamine, loved coke, but didn't do it. It was too expensive, and the dope was too good. Terrified of heroin or needles, and
Oh, yeah.
so I didn't do that. I used to do coke sometimes when I would travel.
Okay.
And I'm glad I didn't find crack, because I would have taken to it like a duck. And coincidentally, the very first NA meeting I went to in Lakeland in Central Florida was right in the middle, then it's moved a bit, right in the middle of Crack City in Lakeland, Florida.
Oh, my word.
Anyways, so talking to, I can't remember her name, his girlfriend anyway, and she telling me about this, and I said, tell me what's it all about. And she brought me a laundry list. You know, like AA, you get a laundry list?
Yeah.
It was a laundry list for adult children of alcoholics. It was a draft. It hadn't been promulgated. This is, you know, you're talking 1986.
Yeah.
I read this thing, and I said, how could they write this stuff? They don't even know me, because
Okay.
it all applied.
Yeah. Oh,
So I
wow.
started going, and that's what softened me up.
So that was your first introduction?
Now, I knew about 12 steps, because my
Yeah.
father was in AA twice.
Okay.
And there's a story. When he died, my mother gave me his big book, and I got all excited because he never would let us go to meetings with him. In fact, once, I was still a teenager, I think. I was still living at home anyway, maybe I was studying. And he said, oh, do you want to come to a meeting? I got all excited because now I was going to learn something about my father.
Yeah.
Because he was really miserable when he got sober. he was like going through his teenage years,
Oy.
you know. It was
One of those classic ones.
and
Won't you just
petty-
have a fucking drink? Type
Yes.
of thing.
And he was going to meetings and speaking at meetings, and he had a sponsor who became his best friend, probably his only ever real friend in his life. She gave me the big book. Now, my big book, which I bought for $5 Canadian on Vancouver Island at a book sale on the beach, because I'd started going by then. I was a few months clean and sober, and then I got all excited. I'm going to find out stuff about
Yeah.
pristine, not a mark. It's like it had just come out of the shop. I was a bit old, but because it's probably a 60s
Yeah.
version. And I don't remember, it was the 3rd edition, because I still use a 3rd edition because that's what I've got. By that time, you know, because I was binging, and I would binge to blackout, not always blackout, but mostly. You know, like I'd wake up in the morning, my wallet would be empty, and the last thing I remember was saying, because I used to count, I used to try to control it, and I never knew when the binge was going to happen.
Okay.
And I was trying to figure out when the binge was going to happen, because that way I could solve the problem.
Try to control, get the cutoff point.
So, whatever it was.
Yeah.
Anyway, the last thing I would remember on a fairly regular basis was, oh, I've had so many and I'm fine. And that would be the last one. My wallet would be empty. One time I have a vague memory that there were these 2 guys that I picked up. Now, I normally wouldn't do that. 2 guys in Hillbrow.
Oh, my
And I
word.
took them home. They stole stuff. I had a Rolex watch in the drawer that I didn't
Oy.
use. I was going to give to my godson. all that sort of thing, and call the police and all that sort of thing. But how did they get in?
Yeah, all those nasty questions that you prefer not to answer.
When the police were coming, my maid, we used to sit on the back part of the house, which we turned into the front, onto a lawn in the garden, closed garden, and smoke joints sometimes. And always take the pips out.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's a big plant grew. And so the maid. Oh, the first thing that was interesting about that plant was my sister was, she was a Miss Republic of South Africa, so she was in the modelling fraternity, and she was going to have a TV shoot there. And the maid said, "You know what that is?" Oops. Anyway, so we planted in the other garden. Anyway, I was terrified that the police, when they came, would think that the people climbed from the street over the wall, and they would find this plant. So I pulled it up, and I don't know what he did. Well, I eventually smoked it.
Our priorities.
Our priorities, yeah. So, but I was binging. For example, there was this all-night place, and I quite fancied, actually had an affair after a while, quite fancied the guy that worked. I used to drink there sometimes, a long, slow screw standing up against the wall. But the trouble is with things like that, they were cooler. It's like drinking cool drink, but very powerful.
You don't realise how much you drink.
6 or 7, you might fall over. Because I used to drink everybody else's because they couldn't handle it. Anyway, I'm very generous. Anyway, I went there one evening, and they said, "Oh, Douglas, it's nice to see you. It's so unusual to see you here 2 nights in a row." Because I had to go past it on my way home. And I'd been out to dinner with a friend, and then we drank a lot. In fact, the very first time, I think I got stopped by the police. But they were just introducing breathalyzers, or about to, and they had a chat at the window, and I was able to cope with it. I could remember that. But I don't remember going to that place. The following night I went there on my way out or something, and I hadn't a clue that I'd been there. Even when they told me I didn't. So I said, because they said, "Well, did I misbehave myself?" And you get all these knowing nudges. I hadn't a clue what happened. They didn't tell me, and I wasn't sure. Yeah, anyway.
I had my first one and I didn't even know what it was, but I spoke to a friend of mine in Johannesburg to make an arrangement about something, so I was in Cape Town, and I called her and I said, "Hey, how are you doing? I'm just calling about..." "Are you okay?" I said, "Yes, why?" She said, "We spoke just now about the same thing." As in, I virtually put the phone down.
And then phoned her again.
And I called her again, and I didn't know that I did it.
Yeah. Yeah, it was...
scary stuff.
Scary stuff. Anyway, so I would do those binges, so I couldn't be certain that I was an alcoholic, because I wasn't going to be like my father. I just did it a little bit differently. He tended to binge a little bit too, but he drank a lot more in between than I did.
So in the house that you grew up in, with father being an alcoholic, has you always been from your first memory?
Ever since I can remember.
Okay.
Yeah, ever since I can remember.
So was there any form of religious connection, spiritual connection? How did you grow up?
Well, my mother was quite religious, Christian religion, and in the Anglican church. My father wasn't. And we had to go to Sunday school. Okay. And I hated it. I would get out of it. It didn't mean anything to me. And then when I became an early, 12 or 13, you had to go to confirmation classes. Yeah. And the minister in the church was a drunk. He used to come and attend to my father sometimes when he was a drunk, but I think he was a drunk because if you went to a communion service, when everything was done, he would drink all the rest of the wine and eat all the rest of the biscuits or wafers or whatever, stuff like that. I thought he was, but I think he was. He had a very red face. Anyway, he would be teaching us all this stuff. I hadn't a clue what he was teaching or trying to. I didn't take any interest in it whatsoever. Anyway, I got confirmed. I can't say I was spiritual. Okay. I liked the outdoors. I walked all over the Peninsula Mountains. This was still in Cape Town, so I was under 15. I was 15 when we left Cape Town. Okay. So I sort of went to church sometimes, and I think I got involved with the Young People's Fellowship and AYPs, we used to call them. And I had friends at school and stuff, and I don't think I had any spiritual. Then I went through a period of being super religious and wouldn't swear and doing all of that sort of thing, and I kind of drifted out of that. So it was never a serious part of my life. I kind of knew that there was something.
Yeah.
You know, there had to be a purpose. Otherwise, what's the purpose? You know, when I was a teenager, when I was 15, as far as I was concerned, I mean, my mother's parents was 27 years older than I was, so that would make them 42. And as far as I was concerned, they were past it. What was life about bringing up all these brats? You know? And I thought that there was no point in living beyond about 25. You could have your fun and then it's time to go.
Yeah.
Possibly 30.
For me, there was no doubt in my mind that I'll die young.
Yeah.
I
didn't think I was going to die young of anything in particular. I just think I couldn't see any point in living longer.
Me as well. It just never came up for me that I might have to plan a future or something.
Yeah.
It was just kind of, it's just going to end early and that's going to be okay. And look where we are now. What went wrong?
Well, that's right. And I didn't really have a spiritual path in any way.
Okay.
I mean, I was kind of interested, not in the church. I mean, by that time, while I didn't have the words, I knew that I was attracted to guys.
Okay, that was my next question going to be. When
but it didn't come out till I was about 32.
Are you serious?
No. I tried with girls and everything, and I didn't come out at all, until I was 32. But I knew. I mean, when I was in Durban, I joined the yacht club, and you go to the junior change room and then the intermediate change room. There's all these naked boys around.
Yeah.
I mean, you are.
It's raining men.
Yeah.
Hallelujah.
I mean, there were odd little things, and there was a boy that I knew from primary school. He didn't come to high school. Who liked to do things. I was a bit uncomfortable, but he said if you did that sort of thing, you'd never get a cold. And there was somebody else that I kind of. No, but I didn't have that spiritual program.
Okay.
But I started, reading. I read quite widely about stuff, and I was interested in. And I can't remember when I really started reading spiritual type things, but it was probably when I went to the States. So, like I said, I was working at this place, and this guy said, "We've got a problem in the States. Come and join me."
Yeah.
And that's how we ended up.
So that's how you ended up in the States.
Yes, but that's eventually my time was up because I didn't get a permanent residence or work visa or anything like that.
Okay.
I was a consultant from the London office, and they gave me 6 months each time until one day they weren't computerized then. One day they only gave me 4 months, but all the stamps were set, so I had to write it in.
So you were in the London office by that time already? No.
That's just the ploy that I used, and I didn't want. I thought there was going to be a revolution in South Africa, so I thought, and I was there in Florida for 2 years, and while I was there, I sold my car, sold my house. I went back I left in October, and I went back in June for my sister's wedding.
What year is it now?
86.
Okay.
I went there in 86. Her wedding was in June 87, and I went back there for a couple of weeks, and then afterwards I sold my house. So I sold up by then, and I lived in Florida, and I was living on that, got a car and all that sort of thing.
Okay.
So when I went to Florida, several things happened. I mean, first of all, prior to meeting, getting friendly with Mary, that's the boss, the guy I worked for, girlfriend, and finding out about stuff, I met some people. There was a thing. It was basically linked with one of the religions, but it said, as an advertisement in the local newspaper, gay ? It's okay. Call this number. So I did, and it was a guy who was terrified to meet me. So I met his mother and the lady that she shared a house with, and we became very good friends. Still now friends. And Marshall went through all sorts of difficulties, but the son. Anyway, so I got to talk to them, and she was very religious. They were very religious, and they were involved in a spiritualist church. They had a neighbour who did readings and things like that. And so we ended up going up to Casadega, which is a spiritualist church camp, and that's when I started a spiritual program. So, but I'd read stuff about alternative religions, New Age, and all the stuff. That stuff interested me. So while I was at Casadega, going to Casadega, a guy gave a talk. He was studying hypnotherapy, past life regression.
Okay.
And And so I sort of got to know him a little bit. And you'd always somebody speaking, and they'd do readings, and it was like a semi-formal church service. And then Loretta, that's the neighbour, Nora's neighbour, would do evenings, spiritual evenings.
Oh, okay.
And I found I could do readings. I stopped doing it eventually, but I found I could do readings for people and stuff like that.
Okay.
And during one of those times, I don't know if it was Loretta, but somewhere we did a thing with an Ouija board. You know what an Ouija board, and you get messages and things. But when somebody took it out of the cupboard, and we opened it up and started doing it, and I felt the most profound sense of evil around that.
Yeah.
Profound. And I just let it go. And I read a lot of books by a guy called Edgar Casey. And based on his, interesting thing with Casey was he did remote readings, but every reading he did, he had a stenographer partner, friend, who took down everything, every reading, so all of them, and they were collected together, and an organisation, after he died, an organisation was formed called the Association of Research and Enlightenment, I should say, not alignment, and a lot of books were published around his thing, a lot of health guidances and all sorts of things, in the spiritual guidances and all sorts of things based on those readings. So I was interested in that for quite a long time, and about the same time I was, I'd gone to meetings, of course.
So what took you to meetings? What made you decide to go?
I at that stage was kind of, despite I don't think I was that heavily involved in the church, but it certainly came later, that spiritualist church. But what happened was that I was kind of at the end of my tether emotion. I'd lost most of my money. I had a little bit of money left, not a lot. I had enough to live on, working and stuff. So I wasn't ever insolvent or anything like that. But it all just seemed pointless and hopeless, and I wanted to die. And I thought that it would be sensible. Well, what could happen is I could get HIV and get AIDS, and everybody would have to love me and take care of me. I went off one day for the weekend to Daytona Beach. It was about 100 miles from where I lived, and I was at a B&B, and I went to this gay bar. I was going to have a couple of beers and then walk on the beach and stuff like this. And needless to say, I met this bloke. And he said, so what do you do? He said he was a hustler. By that time I'd had 2 beers. The upshot of it was we went clubbing, we did spent all night, paid for everything, and I didn't really remember that much. But when I woke up in the morning with him next to me, he was still sexy, but he had dirty fingernails.
And you remember this 28 years down the line?
32 years down the line. It was February.
Oh my word.
February 1987. Of course, I had the most monster hangover, and I was driving back, and I said, this has got to stop. And I'd been in a codependency course with people I met at ACOA. There's a counsellor at the hospital who used to do them privately, and I'd been there a few times, and she was a recovering alcoholic. And although she was smoking dope the whole time I knew her, eventually she relapsed, and she became my sponsor. She was very good, actually, as a sponsor for a while. Anyway, I went on this course, and I don't know what we were talking about. It was in a group. I don't know what we were talking about, but it was something came up, and I obviously flinched. She looked at me and said, "Do you have a problem with alcohol?" I said, "I don't."
Who, me? More?
I'd been thinking about it, but it couldn't be because I didn't do it all the time.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I said, "Well, how do you know whether you're an alcoholic?" And she said, "When you do things or behave in a way that's inconsistent with your standards or principles, and you're under the influence."
Yeah.
And it applies to addiction as well, I think. And that kind of stuck.
Okay.
So when I had this binge with this guy, now we must remember that I was involved in gay politics in Johannesburg, Gay Association of South Africa. But I'd had unprotected sex with this guy who says he's a hustler.
Yeah.
He probably was a gardener, but I mean, because he had dirty fingernails. But maybe did a bit of hustling on the quiet.
Yeah.
I didn't pay him money, but I bought a shitload of drinks. I mean, for Christ, to have a hangover like that. And driving around as well. Anyway, so driving home with this monster hangover, I thought, no, this has got to stop, and I got a fright.
Okay.
because I wouldn't, and that's when I remembered what Bonnie had said about doing the things that go against your principles or standards,
Yeah.
or behaving in a different way because you're under the influence. And if I'd been sober,
You wouldn't have done that.
I probably would have insisted on a condom or something.
Ah.
I wouldn't have let him go.
Of course not. You also have your pride.
Yeah. Anyway, so then I thought, well, I started finding out about. I knew a little bit about meetings because of the ACOA connection, but I thought there was a gay meeting in Tampa, which is 45 miles away. If I went there to Tampa to an AA meeting, I might meet a husband, and I might get sober.
Ah.
And you see, when I got to that meeting, I didn't find the husband either. But when I got to the meeting, I met a lot of good candidates, but they weren't interested in me. Some of them became friends.
Friend of mine said altyd, die vlees was gewillig, maar die oes is swak. So there the oes was good. And the vlees was gewillig.
Yeah, absolutely. Anyway, but when I went there, I didn't say I was a newcomer or anything because I'd been going to Transit Fellowships, the ACOA, so I was very confused. So anyway, I decided I was going to stay. Then I started going to meetings in Lakeland, and a couple of months later, the draftsman in the office was getting married, and he brought this, I wouldn't call it champagne, sparkling wine. It was horrible, it was sweet stuff. He produced this bubbly and passed around. I took him out and I went, oh shit, that's a relapse. Only one.
One mouth.
One mouthful. It was horrible. But I didn't drink another one. So a few months later, we came back from my sister's wedding, and the pre-night, the pre-wedding drinks, party at father-in-law's place, and this was real stuff. Pink champagne from France.
Ah.
We remember South Africa was apartheid, so we didn't get French.
Exactly.
It was really expensive. And
Can you remember in those days someone went overseas and they brought you Swiss chocolate? Oh my God!
Well, they were wealthy. He was a director of Barlow Rand.
Oh my word!
The father, and I was given this and I arrived and I drank this. Another fucking relapse. So my relapses were not binges or anything. It was just each time it was one glass of champagne.
Oh, that's pathetic. If you're going to do it, at least go big or go home. That would have been my argument. I would have thought, well, I've relapsed already, I might as well have a bottle.
Well, I wasn't that I wasn't so entrenched in the finish. If it happened to me now, that's exactly what I would do. It's one of the things that keep you clean and sober. If I start having those sorts of ideas, the needle in the arm and the whole lot, all the things I didn't do. See, I did have a needle once. I had an allergic reaction to penicillin. And I had to go back to the doctor. It was a terrible reaction. He put a needle in my arm, gave me intravenous antihistamine.
Okay.
It made me high as a kite. I wasn't allowed to drive.
Oh, wow.
So the next time I needed antibiotics, I went back to him and I said, give me the penicillin. No, we can't do that. It's too dangerous. I said, you can put that needle in my arm. Because I wanted more.
Oh, my God.
That was sort of way before fellowship days. Anyway, but I wasn't that... I was going to meetings, but I wasn't that involved in it. And I certainly wasn't doing anything like the steps and all of that sort of thing. So, and around about that time, I went on you had a thing in Florida called Agape. Well, it wasn't only in Florida, but it's a weekend based loosely around AA, but all fellowships went.
Okay.
And this girl, Bonnie, who told me that, who was doing the codependency course, said... and I went as an ACOA, I think. I think I was going to meetings, the AA meetings at that point. And she said he was coming. She put me into share with Michael. She thought he was gay, I was gay. We would hit it off. She really took chats to hours in the morning. Didn't get much sleep. Yeah, and so we became friends. And he was by then about 8 or 9 months. And he took me to my very first NA meeting. I'd never heard of it. I always knew about AA because of my father.
Yeah.
It took me to my first NA meeting in Crack City. They're called Top of the Bottom.
Were you still smoking dope at that stage and using the odd coke?
While I was in the States, I didn't. So anyway, so that's when I met Michael, and he took me to NA.
Okay. And that was how many years ago?
That was 1987.
87.
So then I was going to meetings, and I was seeing Bonnie regularly. And then I went away for Labor Day weekend. That's significant. I went to New York for the weekend. And what did I do? I went, no, I didn't relapse. Well, I did and I didn't. I went to a gay bar and I met this bloke and he came back to the hotel and he said, do you smoke? And I knew he meant a joint and I said, no. Do you mind if I do? And I said, no, I don't mind. He rolled this joint and he lit it and then he took a few puffs and then he passed it to me and I took it and I took a puff. But in America they don't add tobacco.
Okay.
And it's very tight and I swear I didn't get anything, but I did voluntarily take it.
Yeah.
I said, geez, this is crazy. So then I had a problem. Now, in NA, my clean date now was Labor Day weekend.
Okay.
And I haven't used since then. But in AA, my sobriety date was my sister's wedding in June of that year. And my real sobriety date was 12th or 15th of February, when I'd had the last binge.
Yeah.
So
it's very confusing.
Extremely confusing.
So what do you use?
Well, I asked everybody what must I do, and nobody would tell me what to do.
Because we don't tell you what to do.
Clearly, it was on my mind.
Yeah.
Well, you've got to think about it, Douglas. It's on your mind. It's obviously worrying you. Anyway, the next Agape weekend I went to, you had a clean time countdown, and I didn't say anything to anybody. I just thought, no, this is ridiculous. And I picked up the equivalent of a white chip at that Agape weekend. Everybody roar! Because I knew what I'd been going through. They were waiting to see what I would do. I hadn't said I was going to do anything. And that's my clean date is the 5th of September 1987.
Okay.
And I said earlier that when I was coming across the border in the airport into the States, and there was this thing. I thought it was time to go. So I thought I'm going to go to South Africa. I wasn't going to go back to South. I sold everything up. There's no point in going back. And I'd been thinking of going 10 or more, 15 years I've been thinking of moving to the UK, and I should have done it when I was much younger. So I eventually did a geographical to get clean in Florida, but there's nothing for me to go back to, really.
Yeah.
And my parents were living in Canterbury, so I stayed with them.
Okay, so by that time
they'd moved after they retired.
Okay.
And he relapsed again. He went the second time round in AA, he relapsed again there, but that's a different story. So I decided, so 5th of September I went, and funny enough, I went on a spiritual, after the last relapse, I went on a spiritual, because I read all sorts of things like Alan Cohen stuff and various other Melody Beattie, all of those self-help, religious, spiritual type books. And I went on a spiritual retreat on the Big Island of Hawaii one Easter weekend. Nothing to do with Fit 12 Steps, but it was all around Alan Cohen. Was he there? I think he was. He wrote a book, I forget what it was called. I've still got them actually. Very interesting. Part of one of those things you had to go and you pair off. And you'd say something and the other person would say, so they talk about something, about your past, your life or whatever. And blow me down if I don't partner up with a guy quite a lot older than I was, who was 8 years sober in AA. And there was another person in the fellowship, and so we'd have private, three of us have AA meetings while we were there. We were there for about 4 days.
Okay.
And I was just saying, there was a theme, I can't remember what it was now, and I just opened my mouth and burst into tears. And we became friends. I was in Florida and he lived near Philadelphia, Atlantic City actually. So the spiritual path, whatever spiritual path
you seem to have been seeking.
Yes. Well, I was seeking something, purpose. I don't, but I'm also highly skeptical. A lot of this, I read quite a bit about near-death experiences and about life after death and about reincarnation, and it seems nice, it makes sense to me, but there's always, when it comes with religions or any of those, or anybody, any movement or anything like, when it comes with that, there's always a little catch, triggers in my mind, triggers, in other words, how would it work? I mean, if you go the Buddhist way, you're supposed to go through several incarnations until you reach a Christ-like state. Yeah. And Christ was one of those, and the Buddha was supposed to be one of those.
So, coming into recovery, you mentioned that you went through a bit of a going to that churchy type of spiritual thing.
So
And
that's all
did that
linked in.
continue for a while? Or
Yes, while I was in Florida, and then
Okay.
I tried to make some contact in London, but I never really pursued it. And I'd been on a healing course, and I'd done a bit of healing. But what I had to do when I was working the steps, obviously, was, if you, and you've probably heard me say this in meetings often enough, is that if if there's a problem and there's a solution, you've got to follow the solution. And the problem of the solution, essentially, if you boil it down, is a power greater than yourself. And I was tied in with those. That's part of my story with the Spiritualist Church, and also, so I was already into New Age. I certainly, I was well out of the closet by then, and I certainly couldn't be doing with churches who would go along and have massive intellectual arguments about whether I was a sin or not.
yeah.
Why would I join an organization? Why would I join it? Why would I be involved in an organization? Right, I was able to separate the spiritual out. I didn't think it was spiritual at all, but I still don't. But I was able to separate the need for a spiritual or for a loving higher power away from that religious dogma where they go into paroxysms about whether they should allow homosexual priests or not, or whether to oppose marriage, gay marriage and stuff like that. I mean, it's outrageous.
Yeah.
And so, why would I? And people say, but there are gay Christians. And I said, well, I think they're crazy, because why would I want to be involved in an organized? Oh no, this is about God. I said, well, you can do God without. If you want to do God, you can do God without going to a church where they're only going to tolerate you, not accept you. I mean, I met a boy. He was 19 or 20 in 1996. He was the receptionist at Mackie's Fontaine. I was on tour in 1996 with Michael, actually, all around South Africa. Anyway, Michael went to sleep and we had a little... He seduced me.
Oh, you were completely innocent.
No. There was a huge age difference and all that. Anyway, so we sort of stayed in the correspondence, and I said I lived in the UK. He said he was planning to come to London. Eventually he did. And he came and stayed with me. But he was very religious, and he came from Langsburg, I think, and a small town in the community, and he'd had guys before, older guys. And he wouldn't sleep with me, he had to sleep on the couch. But every now and again he'd come into my room, and he had this religious angst. And when he did it, he was so guilty, he would leave the flat at 6 o'clock in the morning, so I wouldn't see him, and come back late at night. I don't know what he was doing.
Doesn't have to face you,
Yeah.
Oy, shame.
And then he would, eventually I said, this isn't work, you've got to go. And he went off somewhere else. And then, just before he was going, I didn't hear from him for ages. And then I got a message from him, just went before I came back to South Africa. And I mean, I've tried to talk. By then I was working at Terence Higgins Trust, and I knew about gay men's Christian movement. I said, there's gay Christian movements, there's other ones, there's all religion, Muslims, all of them. Gay people have been able to accept their homosexuality alongside their religion. I said, it doesn't work for me, but I'm not religious. And it's causing he had to go and get married and have children. I don't know what happened to him, because when I called back and the number didn't work, so maybe it was a wrong number that he left. And eventually I got hold of a friend, and now he's gone back, and I said, well, he left a message, and I don't know what that was about. That's that religious angst. The religion
really sad,
stops you from being who you are. I mean, the spirituality and religion should be founded on truth. And the truth is who you are. You're a bloke that fancies blokes. Why should you not have a happy long-term relationship?
I had a wonderful conversation a few weeks ago with the minister from the Central Methodist Mission in Cape Town. And he had such a beautiful message from the Bible.
I knew about a Methodist preacher in London.
Is it? His message was truly kind of, homosexuality is as acceptable as any sexuality.
Yes.
And nobody can convince me any other way.
Yeah.
And that was really nice.
Yeah.
So Douglas, right now...
Just going to say, on the spiritual thing, so I was involved in that spiritual, and it had to be kind of new age way, and it had to be something, and I didn't really know what it was. I tend to call it God. They told me to get on my knees, and for a year I did, every day. and pray. And then I thought, that sounds religious. Because in Florida, the AA is almost like a Christian thing.
Yeah.
They do the Lord's prayers, a lot of the meetings, which is Christian. It's not inclusive.
Yeah.
But the deep South and all that, so they tend to be religious. And they also said, well, it doesn't matter what you choose. It's not up to us, it's up to you.
Yeah.
You can have mine if you like. Just don't make it your sponsor or an individual.
Or if you're a love addict, your husband or your boyfriend.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Because don't put people on pedestals because
Yeah.
they fall off and then you might crash as
Yeah.
well. And that's actually that did happen. I put them on pedestals, but I didn't use them as my higher power.
Yeah.
But it could be anything I wanted. So I had this amalgam of universal intelligence, a benign God or super spirit or humankind, all the meetings, all of that sort of thing.
Yeah.
From time to time it varied. I mean, for instance, I had an experience one day when I was driving the 5-minute rush hour to Bartow, a small town where the office was, from Lakeland, fuming because of the traffic, and I stopped, we stopped, and there was a car next to us. And I remembered that, in the New Age sort of things, we're all connected, we're all connected.
Yeah.
If you think of spirit and soul as in me, it's in you and it's in God, or high power, whatever you want to call it, we're all connected. So I looked up at this guy that was irritating me in the next car. I looked up and I thought, well, if that's the case, then we're connected. Why am I like this?
Yeah.
And I smiled at him, and he smiled back.
Oh, wow.
He didn't know what was going on, but, because of that connection, we're all connected. So that's also, it's all mixed up in there, and I really don't know, and it really doesn't matter what it was.
Awesome.
And the guys in the fellowship said, it can be whatever you like. And then I read because when I was doing the steps, I read each step in every book I could find, every fellowship I could find. And it says in the 12 by 12, I think, if I remember correctly, there's only 2 requirements for this higher power. One, that it's a power greater than yourself. Could be the table, because the table, if you beat yourself hard enough, can really hurt you. So it's definitely stronger than you are, physically anyway. And the other was love you no matter what.
Yeah.
And that's what I've stuck with.
Yeah.
And so, but over the years, I was fairly rigid about what it was in those early days. And I used to like to tell you.
And uncertain terms.
Well, you had to do it my way. Look what I found. You've got to be like that. Today, I really don't know what it means. It doesn't matter. However, I've got a lot of evidence to show that there's something.
Yeah.
My life may not be great. It may not be where I want it to be, but I've stayed clean and sober.
So something out
for
there is
nearly
working,
31 years.
Yeah.
So I was scared, when in those first early days. Today I might get blasé and get complacent, but in those days I was scared, and I did what people suggested. And I did.
It's a very good fear in the beginning. I remember so well how afraid I was as well, and that fear is gone. It's just kind of now. This is what I need to do, and I'm completely okay to do it.
I don't have a fear of relapse or anything. I still have fears. And I know they're irrational, and I talk about them in my prayers. And one of the things that I've done consistently, I've talked to my higher power every morning. I have a little ritual.
Cool.
At one stage it was a bit longer, and I've shortened it. And I used to go through various of the prayers. I tended to go for the NA ones because they were shorter. They were the same thing, but shorter than the AA one. But I could recite you both. And that Bonnie suggested in my early recovery I must read Chapter 5 of the big book every night before I go to sleep, once every day. I used to read it every night for more than a year.
Oh my God.
So I have those rituals.
Yeah.
At one stage, if the readings weren't there, I could recite it virtually.
Yeah.
So, but I have this ritual, and sometimes I meditate. I can meditate, and sometimes I can't keep my mind still.
Yeah.
But I have this thing consistently that I do, and when things go a bit awry during the day, I remember that I put the tape on repeat, the Serenity Prayer. And so these are all the things I've picked up. And so in a sense, that's my spiritual program.
Okay, yeah.
And it's centered around the 12 steps. And I'm 101% certain I need to formally work my way through the steps. I've got issues with sex and lust now, still. And that's come back.
Okay.
and food. You know, the funny thing
Food is my issue at the moment.
Yeah. I go through stages of binging on sugar and stuff, and then
I'm in a phase of binging sugar.
But years ago, I was in OA. I mean, I just really kept off sugar, and I drank herbal teas and decaffeinated coffee. I drank coffee. Anyway, I met a boy in OA, and I'd lost quite a lot of weight too. I mean, it would be nice for me to have a relationship, but I look in the wrong place.
Okay. Looking for love in all the wrong places.
I don't know what I'm looking for. So I need really to go through the steps.
Yeah.
Focusing on those two issues. Because it's you know, I think there's an underlying fear in there. And there's a lot of fear still underneath in there. There's a lot of, and I think it's partly an attempt to block the establishment of a relationship. Well, I've had the odd ones, but not really in recovery.
So you definitely fall in love with the ones you know will not work, so that you...
Something like that. Yeah. I don't consciously think about this. It's very under the surface. But it's a very unconscious thing, and I do not know what it's about. And so I need...
well, there's a 12-step fellowship, so just do those steps again.
Yeah, and I need to reinforce my whatever spiritual path that I'm on, and I need to deal with that. But I've been thinking that for a few years, and I'm one of my defects of character. Well, in the biblical sense, it's sloth. I prefer the word procrastination.
I think procrastination is a far better word.
Yes, and I did my first step 4. I mean, I put it off for days.
Is it? Oh my word, yeah. Douglas, our time has come. This was really, really awesome. I loved hearing your story and the weaving in of the spirituality at the phases. So that was quite nice. Yeah. But I thank you very much.
Sure.
Really appreciate your time.
I love talking about myself.
All of us do.
Douglas and I spoke for a very long time. As a rule, I try to keep Meet Me in the Field episodes short, but sometimes that is not possible. I enjoyed my chat with Douglas. We got carried away quite often, so I had to edit hard in order to get this episode under 1 hour. Douglas had a full and interesting life. I loved to hear how life sent him where he needed to be at certain stages in his life. As you heard, Douglas may be relocating back to London soon. He shall be dearly missed. He is, after all, a legend. If you want to know more about what I do, please feel free to connect with me on my website, which is www.freddy.org.za, or find him on Facebook at www.facebook.com/freddy.org.za/ or on Twitter at @RensburgFreddy. Remember that Freddy is always spelled with an IE at the end. I want to thank you for listening. Be safe. Bye.